freaking go. LSU fans, I'm looking at you wherever you are right now. You are still national champions. But tonight we are turning the page to the sport that all of you have come to love on PHL. And that, of course, is Quidditch. Kidding. We are talking football all day, every day. Obviously, it is a glorious Thursday. You guys know the new schedule. Tuesdays, Thursdays, 8:15 Central. We'll keep it same old, same old. And on Wednesday nights, we'll do live streams at 6 p.m. Central. And then again on Sunday, 8:15 p.m. Central time. So obviously, right off the jump here, I want to talk about a pretty interesting update from 247 Sports this morning, as both KYLAN BILLIOT and Colin HURLEY both got massive recruiting bumps from 247 Sports Recruiting Services, which now makes both of them pretty much a 4-star recruit. I think KYLAN BILLIOT's recruiting rankings on all the other services are going to go up as well. But 247 Sports actually moved him all the way up to the number 3 player in Louisiana. Now, that is not the composite score. That's just how they have him ranked for right now. But that's obviously some very interesting movements in one player's recruiting ranking. And that essentially comes just about a week and a half after he committed to LSU. And then, of course, Colin HURLEY is now a 4-star on all services. The only service where he wasn't a 4-star was actually 247 Sports. So now every service has him as a 4-star, and he is comfortably a 4-star recruit. So does that mean anything in the grand scheme of things? Not necessarily, but what I can tell you is historically, composite recruiting grades are accurate representations of how your class is actually going to perform, especially if you are able to bring in top 100 recruits. I like to go to the top 125 just to give you a little wiggle room there. But if you get top 125 recruits, those guys are oftentimes your difference makers. Of course, you have 3 stars, 2 stars that sometimes become the real difference makers for your class. Sometimes some middle tier 4 stars. But you want to get as many guys in the top 125 because historically, those are the guys that end up being the high NFL draft picks. And just this last NFL draft that we had, go look at the first 2 rounds. 247 Sports had by far their best grading cycle ever. And just across the board, I feel like they have gotten more accurate. In particular, they have gotten more accurate with the quarterback position. So obviously some really, really, really good stuff. And you guys see the thumbnail. We say hi to Skipper, Northenzo, my guy Branson, Race. Finebaum is trying to troll LSU fans. We get into the second topic of tonight. Tyler's making me feel special. He says, you know what? I hate Carter, but for some reason on this random Thursday, I'm going to listen to him tonight. You see the poll question lined up here. Which recruiting service do you use the most? 247 Sports currently still winning the poll. So tonight, I want to actually get to this piece of audio, and I might cut it short. I might not play all of it, but I do want you to hear from the GOAT of SEC media, Paul Finebaum. Had some very interesting comments about LSU.
The news that LSU received sanctions from the NCAA last week. Now, the vacated wins, Paul, I think we all agree, that's a waste of time. It has nothing to do with anything. It doesn't actually matter in the grand scheme of things. Maybe for Les Miles in the College Football Hall of Fame it will, but what should fans take away from what we heard and learned about LSU, their fate with the NCAA? Is this any sort of a real problem moving forward for LSU in football or basketball?
I don't think LSU got a scratch last week. And the message is clear. Cheat like crazy. And don't stop until you win. And I never thought I would say that, but it's the truth. It simply doesn't matter anymore. And what's interesting, and people get confused, the Jeremy Pruitt thing, which I think will be a story eventually here in Alabama, and going back to Les Miles and Will Wade, these all happened before 2 years ago when NIL went into effect. So what it means is you could cheat, you could break the rules, you could stick your tongue in the face of authority back then and get away with it today. Can you imagine what you can do now? And I know people get confused. They think, well, everybody's cheating, it's legal. It's not legal. It's just that nobody is doing anything about it. It's easier to do than it used to be. You can camouflage it. But I frankly, and I don't like saying this because I was one who always believed in the rules and who spent my early part of my career looking into transgressions and thinking those who did it should be kicked out of the industry. It just simply doesn't matter anymore. The NCAA is not, I mean, to call the NCAA a complete and utter joke is an insult to organizations that are borderline jokes. I mean, it's a farce. They have no authority whatsoever. And I don't really mean to encourage people to cheat. You don't have to encourage them. They're going to, but there are simply no rules anymore. And I am long past getting outraged and upset that someone like Will Wade gets away with whatever he got away with, or someone else, because if it doesn't matter to the people who govern the sport, and that, by the way, that includes everyone who sits in on these meetings and on these management councils, then it's certainly not going to bother me anymore.
Yeah, so obviously I went on ahead and played the whole clip. Paul was on one. I don't think he was intending that just for LSU. I think he was more so attacking the NCAA. I will tell you this time and time again. All this stuff, and this goes to everybody that's on Twitter every day and has to deal with Instagram trolls and all that stuff. They're always going to bring up the Children's Hospital thing when you guys know the real story behind all of that, right? It was one rogue booster, and nobody's closet is clean. And I won't go on another tirade about Will Wade ever again, probably. I do think vacated wins is not a good punishment if somebody actually does something wrong. Because, quite honestly, nobody really cares. People know who played those games. People know who won the games and so on. It's kind of like a vacated Heisman Trophy. We all know Reggie Bush won that Heisman Trophy. It is a little bit different. What I will say, though, is as we move forward, obviously Paul Finebaum has Alabama roots, and I think he went to Tennessee. I'm a big Finebaum fan, as in he gave me some great advice when I was a student, and he's obviously somebody that I would love to be as big as him one day. But what I would honestly tell you about the NCAA moving forward is I could see a world where they cease to exist. I can easily see that world. And I think a lot of you have envisioned that for yourself. Because what purpose do they serve? Right? So, honestly, I understand it's not been the prettiest few weeks for LSU. It's never a pretty time when Les Miles' name is in the news yet again. But I'll tell you this time in and time out. When it comes to LSU haters, tell them to look at the rings. Look at the championship rings. I'm looking at each and every one of you. We've won quite a few of those recently. We had our best finish in the Director's Cup, which goes to the nation's best athletic program in all the sports. We're doing pretty good. North End Zone says, I kind of agree with him. Very interesting. I think he made some good points. I do think, though, going after Will Wade doesn't affect LSU fans. It just doesn't. I just think most LSU fans are past it. The ones that say, well, we should have kept him. All he got was a 10-game suspension. They do not understand the climate we were in at that time with the Will Wade investigations. Was it a little bit of a witch hunt? Yes. Did all of that end up looking really bad on the investigative journalists that did the reporting? Yeah, it kind of felt witch hunty. It did. But for me, I just don't think vacated wins are anything that I worry about. And maybe there should be harsher punishments for people that do wrong. Maybe there should be. What I would say, though, is kind of like what I said a few nights ago. Okay? Do not, I repeat, do not, under any circumstance, allow off-field issues to become rancid in your program. Don't do it. Okay? Really think about the character of the kids that you are recruiting. Because I'll tell you this right now. There are other schools that are dealing with some stuff right now. We have been in that spot before in the past as well. Think about who you bring into your program and always understand this. No one individual player moves the needle as much as you probably think that player does. There's roughly anywhere from 4 to 8 guys on every team every year that truly are difference makers, that if you lose them, you drastically hurt your chances of winning a national championship. Drastically. But I'm telling you right now, there are some really good football players that LSU has lost over the years, and they still ended up having really good seasons, right? So just keep that in mind. Alignment, right? And if you feel it takes you something illegal to go get a player, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Now, the next thing I want to bring up is today with the NCAA, we have a very tricky situation. Gambling. Now, as far as the NFL is concerned, gambling was the main story in the NFL today. A few players made some bets, and they got suspended for a full season. One former Ohio State offensive tackle got suspended for 6 games. He didn't bet on the NFL. He bet on something he is allowed to bet, but he did it as a team facility. We have all our thoughts about gambling. Some of you are anti-gambling. Some of you don't want anything to do with it. What I would tell you about gambling is I actually fear more for college sports and nefarious actions with gambling than I do professional sports. Professional athletes make so much money that it's not worth it. You know, the one Colts player who got caught betting, he bet the over on rushing yards for a running back. Okay? That is truly insider information because he has a game plan. He probably knew that that running back was going to get a certain amount of touches. So he made a pretty heavy bet, heavier than his other bets, apparently, for that player to hit the over. Okay? So as sports gambling becomes more detailed, as there are going to be over-unders for college athletes in the near future, this isn't a message for LSU. This is a message for everybody. NCAA is going through right now. They're talking about different legislation for sports betting in collegiate sports. A lot of these college kids throw a bet, get paid a certain amount for that bet. I could see it. I could see it. That's at any school. So if I was an administrator, I would tell my athletes, look, it is true. Bets can be placed. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because the brand you play for will 10x your worth if you use it correctly. Don't be kicked off the team and be made an example for something you don't need to do. You don't need to do it. And I want also to be very clear about this. This also goes for people that watch the channel. I love sports betting. I really do. I think if it's done responsibly, it could be a very fun thing. It could be added. It could be an added enjoyment to the actual sports that you watch. I understand the glitz and glamour that comes along with it. I will say though, responsibility matters, and I do see a lot of my friends, even some family, that thinks, "Oh, okay, I'm going to do a 5-leg parlay." And if I hit all of it, I could be like this person who won $200K. That's how they build their mansions, these gambling companies. So understand that the best sports bettors in the world only hit 55% of the time. I'm just being honest. That's truth. Nobody hits over 60. If they do, they won't take their bets. I'm being serious. But I would honestly get everybody for my favorite team, of course, which is LSU, and hammer home to all of my athletes, don't do it. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because the issue that I think a lot of people struggle with, and I do have athletes that occasionally watch my show. I get it. One thing I would say is your knowledge of a sport has nothing to do with your success at sports betting. That seems counterintuitive, but it is true. Just because you know the most about sports does not mean you're a good sports bettor. It's just true. It's just true. Okay? The people that are actually winning sports bettors, a lot of them don't care about the sport that they're betting at all. They're just really good at crunching numbers and getting a good price, if you will. Okay? Just because you know a lot about sports and you could break down a game better than anybody does not mean you know what parlays to hit, what over-unders to hit, what plays to make. Okay? So be wise. Be wise. Now, let's go to Pierce. 247 has the cleanest interface, but On3 has some game-changing features that will go well with recent changes in the transfer portal on the NIL Plus some biographical write-ups. I like On3 a lot. I go back and forth with 247 and On3. I use all the services. I even use Rivals. I know a lot of people don't use Rivals as much as the other two now, but there's some really good stuff with the Rivals network, right? So I like all of them. I think they all provide different angles and different ideas, and it really interests me. All of it interests me. I guess I just like it all. And overall, I'm not an overly critical person of just anybody in sports media. I know how hard this stuff is. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough to really pick one and stick with it. I just like going to all of them. But I will say I probably, for like my recruiting deep dives, I use 247 quite a bit because I've just always used them and their recruiting rankings are set. They're not going to change after that class is done, right? So there you go. Tony the Tiger says he's tired. That's why I'm here for you, man. I am your post-work entertainment. That is why I am here for you. I'm here for you, Tony, as always. Now, once again, if we had a hundo in Super Chats, I think I gave out the Garrett Nussmeier card today. I was shipping out a bunch of cards today. So here's what we'll do. Let's get this one out. How about a Terrace Marshall? Look at this shiny pink 1-of-1 refractor. If we get to 50 in Super Chats tonight, I'll give this out. We lowered it from a hundo to 50. If we get to 50 in Super Chats, we're going to give this out. Okay? There you go. No joke. I listened to your content on LSU recruiting. It leverages my topic because you look at them all. Yeah, I hold no special weight towards any of the services, though. Because the reason why I say that, John, is because I do my own grades, right? If you're a patron, you've seen the grades, right? You've seen the grades that I give on all the prospects, and it's right there, okay? And in the Discord, I'll explain what I like and dislike about certain players. As some of my patrons know, there are some players that enter the LSU class that have a high recruiting grade, and I don't see it that way. It's not that I don't like. I want everybody that ever plays for LSU to succeed, because as long as the Tigers win, I'm happy. Okay, um, but there's some guys that I have rated higher, and some guys have rated lower than all the services. And sometimes, like, I don't see it. I don't see it as much as other people, right? But I still use their rankings, right? Because their rankings are historically accurate. The top 100 guys move the needle more often than not. Doesn't mean anybody else doesn't. Doesn't mean that Justin Jefferson doesn't. Obviously, he does. Doesn't mean Jacob Hester doesn't. Obviously, he does. But it's more often than not, those are your guys. Okay. And the more of those guys you get, the better shot you are at obviously winning national championships. So there you go. But yeah, I do look at all of them. I try to be as thorough as I can. One thing I'll admit my strengths. I'll admit my weaknesses. I was on Blake's show earlier, and he asked me, "Hey, who's the greatest LSU baseball team of all time?" I couldn't answer because pre-2009, I don't know any. Like, I know players. I can't tell you anything about those teams, though. I could tell you a little bit about every team from 2009 to now, kind of, sort of. But 2023 LSU baseball is the best team. Talent-wise, I don't think you can disagree with that. But even though Brad Cressy's team was my favorite, just saying. Either way, I as far as like the day-to-day stuff and who's visiting where and all of that, I'm just not interested in that stuff, John, because it just gets hokey pokey, right? But I am interested in the player. I am interested in who can actually play, who I think, just looking at their tape and their athletic profile, is that somebody that if I was working for LSU, I would say, yes, absolutely. Let's take a shot at this 3-star. Or, yes, absolutely. Let's spend X amount of resources to get this 5-star. And look, recruiting's tough. I'm not behind those closed doors. LSU has their own board, and they've obviously been really good at picking out players. And I have my own board. Oftentimes, though, John, they're right. 247's right. On 3's right. Rivals is right. Dandy Don, the OG. Joshua, you get to pick the next topic. Go right on ahead. BT, yeah, so I'll address this about on 3's grading, okay? I love their grading for this reason. They will go on their own and go out on a limb more than the other services. They take chances. They take chances on guys that nobody else has rated high. And I like that. I really, really, really do. I just do. Like, I like it when people when people are willing to go out there. But yeah, my follow-up to that, though, Brian, would also be this. On 3 had very favorable views on a couple of the guys that we had last year compared to consensus. Okay, so a good example of that is Lance Hurd. They had Lance Hurd a 5-star before the other services. They also had Shelton Sampson higher than the other services, if I am not mistaken. So, I think they were the first to catapult Dominic McKinley, who will likely be an LSU Tiger. So I think overall, 247, obviously that Will Campbell class got very weird at the end. He lost his fifth star, and then Walker Howard lost his fifth star, and then Jacoby Matthews lost his fifth star, and Aaron Anderson picked Bama, and he got a fifth star. It was strange at the end. It was very strange. Still have questions about that. But I do think, though, overall, one thing I really appreciate about On3 is they're willing to be bold. I think that's good. And I know one of the main evaluators at one of the sites pretty well. But there you go. Now, Joshua, any topic you want to, we'll go straight to it. I appreciate your super chat. Appreciate all super chats on a glorious Thursday evening. Obviously, this is the heart of the off season. This is the time of year that baseball just ends and we get this high from baseball. And guess what? We still have a while to go until football season. Now, next thing I'll bring up tonight is SEC Media Days will be here in a couple of weeks, okay? What I would say is this is going to be the most heavily anticipated SEC Media Days in a while for a different reason. Last year, I don't think anything will ever beat the hype of SEC Media Days from last year because we had the Saban Jimbo fiasco last year. Okay. And now with this SEC Media Days, you don't really have that. You don't really have that juicy storyline. Maybe that changes in the next couple of weeks. You don't know. But what I would say is there are two big stories going into it. Obviously, Texas and Oklahoma, and this will be the first time everybody's together. So there'll be a lot of discussion about the 2024 schedule. But I am more interested in the vote. Every year, the media picks, their preseason favorites. And I do believe LSU will have more votes than Alabama to win the West. And I think Alabama's been picked to win the West for eons now. Even after we won it in 2019, I think they were still heavily picked to win the West. Okay. And rightfully so. We had lost so many players. Truth is, obviously, the ratings don't change anything. But what I would tell you is it does add a little bit more juice to the fire because Alabama can actually, for the first time in forever, play the nobody believes in us crowd. Even though Alabama will be no lower than second, and I think we will be no lower than second. I think LSU will be the first team in quite some time to pick to win the West. All right. So Branson says 247 is more superior. We see Tony in here. I love it. Good to see Tony in here holding it down in Tennessee. And everybody, welcome. I'm on one MYFA. Good to see you. Let's go to this from Joshua. Continuing on for Blake's show. Who would be on my Mount Rushmore of LSU greats? Okay. Very difficult question. I'll stick to the modern era. I think let's just say in the last 10 years. Okay. I think it's pretty easy. I think it's Dylan Cruz, Joe Burrow, Angel Reese, and I'll let you pick the fourth. I think I would go with those three. And then there's a lot of people you could put four. You could put Leonard Fournette fourth. You could put Jamar Chase fourth, Justin Jefferson fourth, Mondo Duplantis fourth. You can vote for any. You could put whatever you want. You can have whatever you like. But yeah, I'm gonna go last 10 years, and then all time. That gets tricky. That gets very tricky because Simone Augustus, Pete Maravich, Shaquille O'Neal, Glenn Dorsey. There's a lot of people that can state their claim for being put on the Mount Rushmore. Odell Beckham, that's a good one. I don't think I'd put him there though. I don't think I'd put him there. Billy Cannon, obviously, yeah. So Billy Cannon would be on like the older version. Kev Falk is definitely in there. Chris Jackson, there's a lot. Odell Beckham Jr. Okay. I'm a little bit different when it comes to you as like an athlete, right? Part of being an athlete to me is how available are you? And Odell was, for the most part, very healthy in his LSU career. And I also think how you handle yourself after your career is over is also important. And I didn't mind it, but it did hurt LSU handing out the cash after the national championship game. I didn't really care for it either way. I think it was cool. Give the players money. I think a lot of people would be like, no big deal now. But that was part of our self-imposed penalties, and it hurt us. In the grand scheme of things, how badly did it hurt us? Not at all. But yeah, I consider that. I do. And I'm a big Odell fan. I also think there have been other receivers better than Odell. I would put Justin Jefferson ahead of Odell Beckham, and I would put Jamar Chase ahead of Odell Beckham. I would. So now, let's go to Cole. In recruiting, I think a lot of kids pick LSU because of the passion of the fan base. They shine here, and the fans show the love in all sports. I do think it's true that the LSU brand is truly special. I do think so. And I think it has now transcended athletics. I truly do believe that. The one thing about LSU athletes is a lot of them, one thing to Odell's credit, is he broke through a different type of fame that is really hard to achieve. I mean, he is truly up there with the A-list celebrity athletes. Gets the best brand deals, and he's up there. And the one thing I would say about LSU athletes in particular is quite a few of them have transcended beyond their sport, and they themselves have transcended beyond the LSU brand. But they wouldn't have got there if they had never actually went to LSU, if that makes sense. LSU is what got them to where they are, and now who they are makes them their own entity, if that makes sense. So it's Lady Dunn, right? Angel Reese. Angel Reese has Cardi B. It's one of the most popular musicians alive. She has over, 20 million followers on Instagram. She changes her Instagram profile image to Cardi B. You got to think, that's not just 20 million looking at that. It's every time you click on Cardi B's Instagram photo, you're seeing the LSU brand when you tap the story, right? May not mean anything to you. It means something, though. It's free advertising. Or it's free organic advertising, to be quite honest. So, Joe Burrow has transcended LSU. He's every kid's heartthrob now. That's just true. Every kid wants to be Joe Burrow. Every kid. He's kind of the guy. It's him and Mahomes now. And the ladies like Joe. They do. And then, of course, Shaquille O'Neal is one of the biggest celebrities on the planet. It's crazy. I can go on and on. But a lot of LSU athletes go on to do those kinds of things. This might not mean anything to you guys, but I'll bring it up as well. So Jordan Jefferson is like Justin Jefferson's sidekick. He helps him manage all of the fame he has gotten. And Jordan has done a masterful job doing this because Justin Jefferson is in Spain with Real Madrid earlier this summer. Then Justin Jefferson this past week, I don't know if you guys saw this, he is the spokesman for the NFL Brazil program. So, the NFL has all these different initiatives. They have an NFL Brazil. Now, it's not like a league, but it's like a thing. There's like a headquarters. You have employees there. And guess what? There's a famous soccer player named Vinny Jr. Now, as a Liverpool fan, Vinny has broken my heart. Won't get into that. But Vinny's one of the biggest sports stars on the planet. And he's one of the best soccer players on the planet. Plays for the Brazil national team. You guys know the history there with Pele. I think you guys know who that is. And Justin Jefferson is front and center at a Flamengo soccer game. Okay. Flamengo is one of the biggest teams in Southern America, club soccer. How many LSU football players, how many 2-star recruits get to that point? Not many. So it is a very good point, Cole. It's that matters in recruiting. If I'm a freaking football staffer and I'm recruiting a wide receiver, I'm showing them like Justin Jefferson was just at the Under Armour like U50 camp where like you mentor a bunch of recruits, and obviously he's a big Under Armour guy. I would not only show him that, I would show him, hey, if you're the next Justin Jefferson, you're hanging out with athletes who are gods, right? Like Vinny is massive. He is absolutely massive. Don't believe me? Go look it up. Vini. Now, I don't like him. But there you go. Cardi B was it? Huh? I never had the Cardi B meal. Good to see you guys. A lot of you trickling in. Let's get for a Burt Jones guy. Ain't nothing wrong with a Burt Jones. Yeah, Burt and I have a very, very. I know Burt's best buddy really well, and I've met Burt a few times. When it comes to fame, I just slobbered. When it comes to fame, yes, Livy is so famous. Like, it is ridiculous. So yeah. But yeah, it's crazy. Like Justin Jefferson is so famous now that like it's strange to say, but he's the biggest non-quarterback in the NFL right now. Outside of probably Travis Kelce. But Kelsey's been in the league for forever, right? So yeah, it's wild. Absolutely wild. But yeah, Jets is so big. He's so big. So big. Jimmy Taylor. Florida won the College World Series 4 years ago and had no fan passion at this year's College World Series. There you go. I won't get into the Florida fan thing. It is very strange, though. A lot of things strange about Florida's baseball fandom. A lot. I think Jefferson has passed Kelsey with fame, at least with people younger for sure, and especially kids. Yeah, obviously the Fortnite effect and Jets, the teeth, the gritty, all of it. But Kelsey's massive. Kelsey right now is on a celebrity golf tournament going up against Steph Curry, and he hosted SNL. So I think I do agree it's close. So it's definitely close. Now, feel free, everyone. If you have a question, fire it in. Obviously, super chats. If we get to 50, we're giving out Terrace Marshall. I do want to get into a few things about LSU. I went through and rewatched the Florida State game earlier today. And I'm more so focused on the defense and the offensive side of the football. But I went through and looked at all the Florida State offensive plays. Okay. And one thing that was very interesting is I've listened to a few seminars that Mike Norvell has given out because I like getting into the minds of a play caller. And the biggest thing that I see from the best play callers are sequencing, right? One thing that I think we get wrong in modern day football when it comes to play calling and just football in general is we tend to think of offensive plays as their own organism, right? Because if you, like, for instance, if you were just wanting to go look at the LSU Alabama game from 2011, you would Google search or YouTube search LSU Alabama. The likelihood that you watch the full game is very low. You more than likely are going to watch the highlights. And the one thing that highlights get wrong about just football in general is it does not show the sequence of plays and events that lead up to that play. And what that means essentially is you always hear coaches say, take it one play at a time. And that's true. Nick Saban always talks about this. Focus in on just this play. And whatever happens, happens. But the truth is, play calling is about sequencing, right? The previous plays affect the current plays. And the best play callers are so freaking good at sequencing plays to where one look that they showed you earlier in the game makes a certain look later in the game actually work. So when you're watching any YouTube video or any YouTube highlights and you just happen to randomly see one blown coverage, you're like, wait, how in the hell did this guy get so wide open? Well, the likelihood is there was a play that happened previously that fooled the defense. And that happens a lot more than you think. Now, I say all of that because Mike Norvell is one of the absolute best at sequencing. He is really good at that. Lane is up there as one of the best at that too. They do a really good job of giving you a bunch of different looks running basically the same thing. And what I saw earlier, rewatching the LSU defense versus the Florida State offense, LSU's defense could not get off the field on third down, and they gave up too many easy third and long conversions, and that is on Matt House. He just did not do a good job of making things more difficult for Florida State's offense. But then again, it was Matt's first game, so you give him some leeway. And there were a lot of throws that Jordan Travis made that there was nothing you could really do about it. But you actually go look at Florida State. I think they only average like 5.5 yards per play, we did a really good job of stopping their bread and butter play, which is counter. Okay. I think overall we defended counter pretty well in that game. And essentially what counter is pulling one or two offensive linemen from one side of the line of scrimmage to the other. That's a very simplified definition of counter. There's different variations of counter. We did a really good job of stopping what they do well. We really did. It's just all the other stuff we didn't do well. And one thing that it did, though, is it made the sequencing of some of Florida State's play calling to be very disjointed. And it gave us a few stops in that game where if we were just a little bit better on offense and not, holy crap, what the heck are we doing on special teams, that game would have been a lot closer. And obviously, the biggest X factor in that game was that we weren't playing our best players, which luckily enough, we figured out by week 3 who our best players are. You're going to win more games if you have Emory Jones and Harold Perkins on the field. So, I went back and rewatched a Florida State game, and it was so interesting. I thought that I would have saw them just busting off long runs on counter because I knew that's what Florida State did, but that's not what happened. It's not. We did a really good job of really, really making a difference. Let's go to Blanche's Super Chat. I see some OG PHLers. Edward O, the Nuts Bus driver, good to see you. TJ, good to see you. Do you think that LSU is already preparing for FSU? That's a good question. Not really. I think they are mostly focused on recruiting for right now. I think when June ends here, there will be a little bit more of a move towards the actual games. And I think the way it normally works, Blanche, obviously different coaches have different ways of doing it. I think the first thing that they are going to do, especially when, fall camp gets started, is see what you have, right? They have a good idea what they already have. But the first thing that they're going to try and figure out, especially knowing how the Florida State game actually went last year, is let's see if Kamarion Pimpton is really him right out of the gates. Let's see if Caleb Jackson can give us something. Okay. So, I do think they are more so focused on themselves. And I think probably, a few weeks before the Florida State game, they'll start beginning their Florida State install. And I would guess that they are probably already doing some research on Florida State. Now, what I can tell you, sources, and I don't do the sources inside information thing all that much. Recruiting is still, kind of the thing, but normally LSU, they wait for June to end, and then July is when the current team stuff really starts to pick up. Okay, now that doesn't mean they don't recruit in July. I do also think, I wouldn't say there was a de-emphasis on official visits in the summer, but I do think there will be a lot more visits happening and a lot more focus on the visits happening when the games actually start. So there you go. Keep in mind, FSU didn't see Harold Perkins last year, and Travis won't outrun Perk. Game 1 will be huge. That's so true. Absolutely true. And thank you for the super chat, Rick. I heard Mason Smith said they were already watching game film on FSU. That's good stuff. It's very good stuff. But I was more so, LA Mom, focusing on the coaches and the actual game plan. But yeah, I'm sure that they have access to any game film that they want. But yeah, Harold Perkins did not play. versus Florida State outside of, I think, a few special teams reps. So, and I do think there were a few plays that Jordan Travis made where he was able to run around and make something happen. So, there you go. Let's see. Game 1 will be so huge. I do agree. Do. Let's see. Good luck with the church stuff. Branson Cat hit me up. I looked up the Finebaum comments. What a joke. Yeah, you can actually rewind to the beginning of the show and we'll get back into that. But yeah, I spent a lot of time looking at Florida State today, and obviously a lot is going to change from now until then. Okay. Well, not a lot, but a lot more discussion will happen from now until then. Okay. Something else obviously is Florida State is not going to have that warm-up game like they had last year. So that's obviously a big difference maker. Let's see. I think Mason Smith going down was huge in that game. I agree. But honestly, the special teams is what destroyed us. Any of you going to the first game? There's actually quite a few PHLers going to the first game. I've been invited to not one but 2 Florida State tailgates. It's pretty crazy, right? I didn't think we had Florida State folks that watched. One is actually a former player. He's been on the channel before. I think a lot of you enjoyed him. I thinking about getting him on again. I just love him. And another is just a fan. They're like, hey, if you're coming down, let's go. Let's go. And then Van on here called me out saying, you better go. Something else I want to bring up. It's not necessarily Florida State related. I do think there's so much emphasis on this being a must-win game. I do think LSU, if it's a close game and it's a sexy game, I do think if LSU loses that game, they're not out. I really don't think so. I think LSU very well could run the table if they were to lose this game. Florida State's going to have a really good team next year. I don't know how many teams I could say right now are better than Florida State in all of college football, right? Like the 3 teams that we always point to being just way better than everybody else. Every year in and year out, the teams that make the most playoffs, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, all have new quarterbacks. Okay. I honestly just I just got to be real. I think obviously winning that game, especially considering it's a Sunday night game and quite literally everybody on the planet is going to be watching it. I think that game is just going to be one of the highest rated college football regular season games ever. I really do believe it. And there's a lot of NFL draft hype surrounding this game. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be absolutely crazy. And Jaden on that drive was so freaking good. He was so freaking good. And you know what I could do, Rick, is if you guys want, I could play a little bit of the Jeray Jenkins interview. And Jeray actually broke that drive down for us in our Jeray Jenkins interview, in-person interview at our last PHL get-together. So, yeah, I mean, Jaden was so good on that drive. I understand Florida State was playing a softer defense, but the final drive in particular was one of the best drives I have seen from an LSU quarterback. With everything against him, he just made so many freaking dime throws, dime reads, dime runs, and the final throw to his fourth read on the progression with 2 seconds left in the game was so good. Now, Dre's route was even better, but still. Cole says, my wife said I've been a good hubby, so I've earned an Orlando road trip. Plus, her best friend lives there, so we'll be having beach wine then. There you go, Cole. I kind of want to, you know, one thing I haven't done in a while, y'all. I don't want to bully Cole into putting up a photo of himself. We haven't bullied an anonymous letter in a while. I think Cole should change his profile photo. Cole's been a diehard PHLer. The OG's PHL, you know, I mean, you gotta at least have an LSU graphic. See, look at TJ's photo. It's him in his graduation gown. Look at that. And look at that smile. TJ's been engaged recently. Look at this. Ramos is a good kicker. It's not really anything you can. There's not really anything you could do about him choking it up in the spring game. He made that big kick versus Florida to seal it. He made some big kicks for us throughout the year. Florida State game wasn't his fault. I think Ramos is fine. I do. If I knew, I would put my son's game ball pick from Arkansas game in 2003. Well, we got to figure it out. I kind of want to see this photo now. Grabbard, good to see you. Use Dandy Don. Shout out to the OG. RIP. Dandy Don. I've been mentioned on that website a few times. Shout him out. The OG LSU blogger. It's crazy. The Don Vito Corleone. Yeah, man. I like seeing your beautiful faces. I'm technically challenged. Okay, I got it. So here's what we're gonna do, Cole. Next live stream on Sunday night, I better see that profile photo changed. I better. Now, Pegasus, good to see you. I do want to ask you guys a question. The lovely people of PHL Nation. Let me know, because I'm not going to release this and nobody watch it. Because if you just release a random film study, people are like, wait, where does that come from? I've worked on this for weeks. I worked on a Brian Thomas Jr. deep dive. I get a lot of questions about him. If I released it Sunday night at 6 p.m. Central, would you guys tune in? We'll still have the live stream at 8:15 Central. But if I released the BTJ film study Sunday night at 6 p.m. Central, would you guys tune in? Would you guys like some Sunday night lead-in film studies? Let me know. The only way it could work is if you guys watch. Now, it'd be good for me because Look, sometimes I can't get super chats. Sometimes, my film studies get demonetized, but the more stuff I put out, in theory, the more this channel continues to grow. But the only way it can work is if you guys are watching the videos. Because one thing, I'll just give you a little bit of behind the scenes here. The initial growth of the channel was via the film studies. And then I got a lot of unique growth when I do these statistical deep dives, right? But the truth is, if I put out a recruiting video, it does numbers. If I put out something on the current team, especially in the off season, it doesn't do as nearly as well as the recruiting stuff. I don't know why. It's kind of bizarre to me, but I do what you guys want to watch. My favorite thing to do are the film studies, are the statistical deep dives and all that kind of stuff. So on Sunday night at 6 p.m. Central, I write it out. I will drop the BTJ film study. Okay. Let's put it right here. All these notes. Look at all that. I get it because you're out there doing lawn work. At least that's what you tell us, TOV. Also, I am trying to grow the PHL Facebook page. I'm not good at Facebook. I don't really know anything about it. So if you guys are on Facebook, go like the Power Hour LSU Facebook page. It goes a long way. And just growing. People share like crazy on Facebook. They do. It's a lot. Like I guess me and Zuck don't get along. I thought me and Zuck were buddies. This is the Facebook page. Here you go. Fritzy, good to see you. But yeah, whether you watch live or not, that's fine. Carter's ride fun. Yeah, I need to get a vehicle. I do. See me riding dirty. I love it. Now, next topic. And boy, y'all, I got to be real with you. I'm starting to talk myself into a major Brian Thomas Jr. season coming up. And I get it. I get it. Totally get it. Aaron Anderson's the next great thing. I totally get it. Kyron Lacey is the next great thing. I totally get it. But all BTJ has done is turned himself into the best blocking wide receiver that we have. And I'm just talking about when he buried Elias Ricks into our own sideline. I want you guys to watch out. It's going down. It's going down. BTJ breakout season. I will tell you this. And this is why it's important to go watch the games. And you'll see it on the film study Sunday night at 6. Just for a little teaser for all 67 of you watching right now. Brian Thomas Jr. is the unluckiest wide receiver I think I've ever seen. I mean, goodness gracious. What else could he have done on some of these close completions? All right, sometimes the ball would just barely miss him. It would be slightly behind him, or he'd be open and we would throw it to Malik, or against Auburn, he almost made one of the best catches you'll ever see. His foot was barely out of bounds. Then freshman year, he has that 71-yard touchdown called back for a questionable holding call on Cam Wire. He had that Florida catch that he made overturned. That was BS. It was a ridiculous catch made right in front of the Florida bench, and there wasn't a single person on the Florida bench asking for a review or asking for the play to be called incomplete. He's gotten the worst luck. He has gotten the absolute worst luck. This is it. What do they say? Luck is about preparation. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Now, has he had some drops? Yeah. Can he disappear? Yeah. Is he an alpha? Probably not the same. I mean, there's not many people that has the Malik Neighbors, I'm going to own you on every play mentality. Not many people have that. I think he can be an alpha. I do. Oh, man. Here we go. Aaron Anderson questions. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. I'll do this. Because a lot has changed from his days at Edna Carr to where he is now. If I get a $20 super chat, I'll share with you everything that I know about Aaron Anderson. I'll share with you everything. Because I don't mind. I don't mind chatting Aaron Anderson. Okay? I'll share some things that I really like, and I'll share some things that I am very concerned about. But if we get a $20 super chat, we'll talk about it. Happily talk about it. But what I'll do is share with you this. The LSU coaching staff loves him. They love him. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, they love all their players. And that's true. They do love all of their players. Smooth. But they love Aaron Anderson. They really do. There is a reason why they wanted nothing to do with him playing spring football. Because of his injury history. Okay? Now, if they really wanted to see Aaron Anderson get some run, maybe, just maybe, they could have said, hey, Aaron, could you practice? No. But what I'll do is, since we talk so much BTJ, I'll save the Aaron Anderson chatter for a different day. But if we get a $20 super chat, we'll happily do it. Okay? Because obviously there's a lot of differentiating opinions. Well, actually, there's not. Like, everyone I talk to thinks he is special. Not good, not great. They think he is special. 5-star, Edna Carr puts out dogs. They put out dogs. And they put out elite after elite after elite skill guys. Okay? It's their MO. Okay? You guys have seen the documentary. I don't know if Brian's still in here or not. BT is an expert on that area. And he's a legend there. I mean, he was truly sensational there. It really was. And why do I think Anderson and JoJo transferred from Bama? Okay. Why did Aaron Anderson transfer from Alabama? It's a very good question. I think a big reason why he went to Alabama in the first place is because LSU went through a coaching staff change, right? And I know that didn't deter like Will Campbell and a few others, but Aaron had a relationship with that Orgeron. And look, if I'm a wide receiver, wide receivers care about touches and fit. Well, how can you know touches and fit when we didn't have an OC hired? It was hard. It was really, really, really hard as a skill guy to walk in to a situation you don't know the direction. Right now, everybody pretty much knew that they were going to go to Denbrock, but he went to Alabama. Alabama lost Jamison Williams, and there was an open receiver room, and he got hurt. But then things changed. He saw that the LSU offense was dynamic. He saw the opportunity to come back home. Our staff is loaded with Louisiana coaches from the 504. And obviously, there was a wide gaping hole at punt return. Okay? So, there you go. But JoJo Earle, I got to be honest. I thought JoJo Earle was going to be so special at LSU. And his grade was really high for me. He was one of my best players in that entire class. And boy, was I wrong. Thank God JoJo Earle did not pick us, because Malik Neighbors might not have ever picked LSU. Could you imagine where we'd be if we did not have Malik Neighbors? We definitely don't win the West last year. That's for darn certain. So, look, say what you want about JoJo Earle. He had some moments last year. Caught a big pass versus us. Caught a few tutties from Bryce. He just never really fit what they did. We'll see how he does versus at TCU. I still think he's going to be really good, though. I still believe in JoJo. Two of my favorite SEC wide receivers, JoJo Earle and Jack Besh, going to TCU. And the Kendall Browse offense, very interesting. Let's go to Jordan. Thank you so much for the super chat, Jordan. He wants to talk KYLAN Moses, 2025. Do-it-all athlete. Okay, he will probably play linebacker, following his brother's footsteps, Dylan Moses. So, obviously, Jordan, thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate you. And special shout out to Jordan for jumping on PHL. Now, what I want to do, and let me know if you guys are interested in this. I'm interested in getting you guys on the channel. I kind of like putting viewers on the channel. Some of you, I've not quite made it as open because, as you guys know, I am very, very, very particular of, different guests and whatnot. But I would absolutely love to put more of you guys on here. I don't know who would be willing to make that leap, but there you go. Now, really quickly, I think everybody's kind of mad at Jordan because I think everybody would love to have a photo with a national champion. There you go. Look at that. Look at that. That is something else. Anyway, KYLAN Moses, as you can see, consensus. Well, not consensus, but consensus top 200 prospect. I was going to say consensus top 100, but he is a consensus top 200 4-star. So he's a comfortable 4-star on all services. Now, his older brother, of course, is Dylan Moses. And obviously, I think a lot of you still have recruiting shrapnel in your soul from the Dylan Moses fallout. And I get it. He is a really, 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 he turned out to be a really good player for Alabama, and his NFL career fizzled because of injuries. And Dylan Moses was on the cover of ESPN Next, and, you know, he was playing for U High, which is a Baton Rouge, you know, power. Jordan had too many jello shots. But the truth here is KYLAN Moses is obviously a guy that that the LSU coaches are very interested in. Look, you know, when you get the opportunity to get a 4-star linebacker in your own backyard, you got to take advantage of it. And he does go to U High like his brother. Now, 2025, we're still a long way away. And obviously, off-ball linebacker, all positions are key. It's not a absolutely positively premium position. But I do think there are quite a few of you that would like to revenge the loss of KYLAN Moses many a years ago. Okay? So, there you go. At this point, though, the recruiting index says that he's 96% going to LSU. Yeah, Dylan Moses, currently a free agent, played 1 season with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Had the injury, really sucks for him. Yeah, he was a good player at Alabama. First team All SEC in 2020, second team All SEC in 2018. Dylan probably regrets going to Alabama. Yeah, I don't know. I'll say this. Would he have been a great player at LSU? Absolutely. Dylan Moses was a good SEC linebacker. But I wouldn't change a thing. Obviously, I'm severely biased, but very happy Patrick Queen was allowed to grow into the player that he is now. And I'm not sure if that would have happened if Dylan Moses was in the picture. And Patrick Queen ended up being a better player than him. So, you know, now it's close. I mean, Dylan Moses once again was very solid, but PQ is PQ, y'all. He had his 2 absolute best games in the 2 biggest games of the season. I'll take that any day of the week. But yeah, I hope we get KYLAN Moses though, and I understand it's emotional. Hey, you're not brain dead, baby. You're not brain dead. That $9.99 could buy me not 1, but 2 Rocco's Jello shots. I'm just glad you made your flight. Oh. No. We're still going.
Here, don't let her in. Here.
Am I off?
Well, I mean, you were quiet. I didn't know.
No. That's what she might say later tonight. Kidding. She makes such a great punch. He committed to A&M, correct? I don't know. I've been busy watching Florida State all day. He committed to Texas A&M. So I'd heard I'll keep my mouth shut. Obviously, LSU wanted him. I'll put his profile up here. Let's see here. Traylon Miller. Okay. It's the Texas A&M. I'd heard that this is where the lean was. Once again, I'm not the best recruiting insider or whatever. So when you said that, I was like, okay, he commit. I don't know. That's a good question, John. I think you kind of have to at this point. Like, I could see Saban coaching to, when he's 75. My big thing, though, for me with Nick is he's just complaining too much. Is Nick losing his edge? He is complaining too much. Honestly, Jordan, no real sweat off my back. Obviously, with LSU picking up a few wide receiver commitments and having such a loaded, wide receiver class this last year. There was a guy for 2024 I was just kind of all in on, and that LSU had on a visit, Cam Coleman. I heard the visit just wasn't bad for LSU, but I heard it just wasn't like that. It's not likelihood that Cam. It broke my heart. I thought this kid was going to fall in love and be like, God, dog, I'm going to be the next great thing. But you guys know I was a huge Cam Coleman guy. It's kind of been my favorite receiver in 2024. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith looks pretty good, but yeah, Jalen Miller. I've not watched a whole lot of him, to be quite honest. Like, I think I peeked his highlight tape. Normally, I like to look at it a few times. So what I'll do, Jordan, is I'll look at it right when this is over, and I'll shoot you a text and give you my absolute bottom of the heart, honest thoughts. But it's something I would say to every single one of you, whoever you are right now. Okay. Whenever you watch any, and I mean any, and I mean any wide receiver that has interest in LSU, especially if that wide receiver is an out-of-state wide receiver, you need to watch and say, is this guy remarkable? Your standard should be higher at that position because LSU has never had an issue producing wide receivers, whether they're 5 stars like Terrace Marshalls or they're lower tier stars like Justin Jefferson or like we said, Malik Neighbors earlier. It's just how it is. We don't have issues there. Okay. So look, Jalen Miller might be the next Jamar Chase. I don't know. Not really watched him. But watch a wide receiver's tape and ask yourself, hey, is this guy special. Now, it's hard. It's hard to see that. It's hard. But if you see special, you know it. You know it. And honestly, when it comes to just any high school football player and their high school tape, rarely is that highlight tape so freaking special that you are just going to be a gazillion % certain that this guy is going to be a stud. Jelani Watkins out of Texas, everybody feels good about him. Smaller guy, very similar, build-wise to Michael Turner, who LSU just got. Okay, they're not the same players, but Jelani Watkins loves him some LSU, and that's good. So let me ask you this, Chance. Do you think he's great? Do you think he's special? When you watch Jelani Watkins play, do you think when the ball touches his hands, it's magic? Now, offensive line, if you have a 4-star grade, we're taking you. I mean, that's more often than not. That's how I'd be, because it's just harder to recruit that position. So there you go. Now, let's see here. In the next 5 minutes, I'll answer as many questions as we possibly can. As many. But if you super chat, we'll keep this party moving all night long tonight. All night long. Don't forget, one way for PHL. PHL Patreon, baby. Hit that link right there. Goes an absolute positively long way. Also, if you're not in the state of Louisiana, another way you could support PHL is with Underdog Fantasy. Sign for the promo code. They just released a $15 contest where you draft a team, and guess what? If your team wins for that week off a $15 entry, you win $20,000 off a $15 buy-in, and you get 17 chances. 17 chances to win $20K off a $15 buy-in. Underdog Fantasy, underdogfantasy.com. Not eligible in the state of Louisiana, but if you're outside the state of Louisiana, that is the way to go. Underdog Fantasy. Underdogfantasy.com. Dennis Shaver could use him. Absolutely. So for those that don't know, Dennis Shaver is LSU's legendary track and field coach. And Jelani Watkins can really move. He is fast. I'll give you that. Okay. But you know how I am, Chance. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the biggest. And that's okay. That's okay. You could be undersized and produce. But he runs a 20. He is so unbelievably fast, so 150. But he does run a 23.2 200 meter. That means you're not only fast, but you can maintain top speed at a very long time. 23.9. That's just so freaking fast. That's unfreaking believable. Like, as unconscious speed. I'm going to put his profile up here. Look at that. Top 200 guy. as you can see, a lot of people have different opinions on him now. 247 and ESPN have him as a top 125 recruit. You guys know I love that. On3 and Rivals don't even have him as a top 50 receiver, but they do have him as a 4-star recruit. It's very interesting. Okay. TOV, the best thing. This is the absolute best thing about Underdog Fantasy TOV. Okay. Is you don't have to set your lineups. They do all of that for you. That's what I love about it. Regular fantasy football, it is a weekly grind. Waiver wire, the whole thing. Best ball. I'm telling you, if best ball fantasy football was out before the fantasy football that we know, nobody would play the old fantasy football. That's why best ball is quite literally the best way to play fantasy football. I might even sign up and do a $15 draft after this live stream is over. Devonta Smith. He was a recruit LSU was in on in the last 10 years. You really wanted, but they missed out. How in were we on Devonta Smith, though, would be my question. I think most would say we had a shot. I would probably, I don't know. I thought Patrick Surtain was him. I really did. I was really torn on that one. I truly did believe in his ability. I think at the time I was with SEC Country, RIP. I think I called him Patrick Peterson. I really thought he was great. And he was. But we had Derek Stingley the next year and Christian Fulton. So I'd probably go him because he was so freaking good coming out of high school. And look, him and Sting had it made having, dads and football lineage, as good as you possibly can get it, to be quite honest. But yeah. Yeah, 23.9, 200 meter in. That's hard, man. You got to be moving, man. 100 meters, one thing, but 23.9 at a 200, that's hard. I mean, you have got to get to top speed and maintain it, right? So there you go. SEC, a lot of it's just athleticism. But when he commits, that would be LSU's second receiver. That would be 150 pounds. But they do have a 6'3", 200-pound guy in BILLIOT. So it would kind of complement each other. Be a pretty good class. But there you go. Now, don't forget Sunday night, we got a doubleheader for you. 6 p.m. Central. We've got the Brian Thomas Jr. film study. Then we'll have our normal 8:15 Central live stream. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! And tonight, we're doing barbecue chicken in honor of Shaquille O'Neal. Let's go.